Hello again, friends. I'm Seed Hero, and welcome to Radical Dreamers. I can't tell you how excited I am to get to play this with you. I am a huge fan of the Chronos series. Knowing that Radical Dreamers was sitting between the two for all those years, but I didn't really have access to it, was not the greatest feeling. But now here we are. 2 decades later, more than 2 decades later, finally getting to kick up Radical Dreamers on the Switch. Crazy time we live in. That said, as far as I know, Radical Dreamers falls chronologically between the two Chrono games. Not that the two Chrono games make a whole lot of chronological sense, per se. However, Radical Dreamers does have Kid in it, I believe, and it is what she was getting up to prior to the events of Chrono Cross. I've read that it's more of a visual novel than it is an actual game, so I guess we will see how that goes. But either way, I am super excited to get this started. It all began with a notebook my mother handed to me. She told me she found it while cleaning out the closet. This old notebook, covered with mold, was a diary that belonged to my grandfather, who passed away years ago. It contained his distant memories. I wonder if you still remember how we first met and our many adventures. It all seemed like a dream. We ran like the wind during those warm summer days long ago. You were a piece of a star that fell from the sky. I can still relive the memories of those days long past. Just by closing my eyes like so, and whispering your name into the desolate night. Kid. Kid. Oh God. Kid. Hey, kid! Are you ready, kid? I know you're anxious, but stay on your toes. Yeah, likewise, mate. You mess up and I'm leaving you behind. Got that, Serge? Come on, Magil, let's go. That bastard Lynx is gonna get what he deserves. Say your prayers. Not that it'll do you any good. Bah-ha-ha-ha-ha. We are going to be sticking with Surge here, considering that's canon and all. The old lady's tip-off was right on the money. The counterspell on the barrier around the outer walls could have done a real number on us. Kid's plain, unadorned braid flicked back and forth across her shoulders as she walked. We picked our way through the elaborate lattice of the manor's magic shields, moving in closer and closer to Lord Lynx's stronghold. There were 3 of us, Kid, Magil, and me. I guess it must have been 3 years already since I first met Kid. Back then, I was just a wandering musician, traveling wherever my feet would take me, and wherever a few tunes would pay for a warm bed. It was in the Outlands, in a town called Rajora, where we first ran across one another. And since then, she dragged me along on a whole bunch of adventures. And misadventures, too. Ah, Kid. She was a thief. And not just any thief. Just a few months shy of 17, and already renowned as one of the realm's greatest. What's more, she was achingly beautiful, stylish, a joy to be around, and a dab hand at campsite cooking, or so she liked to claim. Truth was a little different. Those bandits with hearts of gold you've heard about in the stories, the ones who steal from the rich to give to the poor, yeah, that wasn't Kid's style. She was short-tempered, prone to lying, bossy, and obsessed with money. And rarely did she care to listen to a single word anyone said to her. But she wasn't all bad. Probably. Maybe. Sometimes. She had her moments anyway. Glanced over my shoulder to see a shadow hovering behind us, blending into the darkness like smoke. Magil. Also known as Magil the Shade. He was Kid's partner, but even after 3 years, still knew hardly anything about him. All I knew was that he was around 30 years old, not much of a talker, but he was one heck of a mage. I heard that he and Kid started working together way before I met her. He always covered the top half of his face with a mask. I'd never seen what he looked like underneath. He was a man so mysterious that sometimes it seemed like he was an interloper from another world. It wasn't like Kid was exactly big on details about her past, but Magil? He might as well not have had one. And Kid didn't seem to know much about her partner in crime either. What kind of man he was, what kind of life he'd lived before, nothing. You might ask how exactly I wound up being a part of this merry band. Well, it's complicated. I guess you could say that life doesn't always turn out the way you think it will. Kid, who was heading up our little raiding party, suddenly stopped. Look lively, boys. We've got company. We glanced around warily as cold, cruel eyes emerged from the darkness. I heard a low growl. Dark shadows prowled through the night, surrounding us. Pack of wildcats. There must have been about 10 of them. A thrill of fear ran down my spine. Flustered, I pulled my knife from my belt. Kid calmly shifted into a fighting stance. Watch yourselves. Don't reckon these buggers have been treated for rabies. The wildcats snarled and growled as they slowly closed in on us, drawing the noose tighter and tighter. Their eyes glinted in the darkness like fireflies, and strings of eager spittles dripped wetly to the ground. One of them sent an almighty roar soaring to the moon, and the hunt was on. What was I going to do? Clearly, we tried to use magic. But I don't know any spells. A wildcat lunged at me, its jaws agape. Gah! By pure reflex, I shielded my face with my arm. An intense pain shot through me from wrist to shoulder. The wildcat tried to sink its fangs in deeper, but its grip was poor. I shook it off and gave it a good kick for good measure, sending it running back into the pack. Surge, behind you! Panicked by Kid's warning, I whirled around, and came face to face with a pair of eyes blazing like hellfire. We're not going to try to use magic. You know what? I tried to use magic. In my panic, there was nothing I could do but stare as the gaping red maw of the wildcat grew closer and closer, gradually eclipsing my vision. My eyes were drawn to its yellow fangs, one of which was missing, and my senses were overpowered with the smell of rotting flesh. I saw myself disappearing into those dark, fleshy depths. And then, something crashed into me from the side, sending me flying. Wildcat bit down where my head had been only a second ago. There was a sound like a bear trap slamming shut, and then my shoulder exploded with pain. But I was lucky. Its claws had just caught me as I was thrown clear. I lay gasping where I'd been slammed into the ground. The wind knocked clean out of me. You bloody idiot! What were you doing just standing there? It was Kid. I lifted my head, and from the corner of my eye I saw her get nimbly back to her feet and square off with another wildcat. Ah, Struggling to force some air back into my lungs, I somehow managed to get my aching body back onto its feet. I was breathing heavily. The handle of my knife was slick with sweat, and I tightened my grip. With a kick like a bolt of lightning, Kid landed a clean hit on the flank of a nearby wildcat. It staggered before losing its footing, letting out a pathetic cry. The Kid had already moved in to finish it off. But then, the roar of fire, a burning smell, filled my nostrils. And next to me, a shrill screech pierced the air. Magil's fire spell engulfed the head of a nearby wildcat. It fled, darting off into the darkness like an arrow. I scanned the area. Only moments ago we had been surrounded, but now there wasn't a single wildcat left. Kid and Magil had either sent the rest off with their tails between their legs, or put paid to them once and for all. Huh, you're dreaming if you think a pack of flea-bitten mogies is gonna stop us, Lynx. Kid crossed her arms and flashed a triumphant grin. Meanwhile, I was panting heavily, and it felt like my legs were about to give out from under me. I collapsed to my knees, overwhelmed by what I'd just been through. Taken a few hits, but I was fine otherwise. A couple of scars to talk about later, maybe, but nothing that would stop me carrying on. You hurt? Magil looked down at me, his face expressionless as ever. No worries, Meg. You'll be alright, said Kid, barging in to get a better look at me. He may be winging Sook, but it'll take more than a few scratches to kill this one. She was nothing if not sympathetic. But she was right. This was no time to be bemoaning my lot. We hadn't even reached the manor yet. I dabbed at my wounds with a tincture-soaked cloth and wrapped them with bandages, then looked up at the other two. I'm sorry, you'll have to carry on without me. No, we have to push. This is our adventure where we start learning magic, guys. We're just getting started. We're just getting started, I grinned back, putting a brave face on things. That's what I like to hear, Kid cheerily announced from close quarters. But then her eyes turned cold, like the cool glow of the moon in the night sky. It's gonna be a long night. I nodded, trying my hardest not to utterly lose myself in her pale, blue eyes. Alright, let's get this show back on the road. She turned away and marched off deeper into the trees without looking behind to see if me and Magil were following her. Magil, of course, was already right behind her, his unhurried gait making it seem as though nothing much had happened at all. I jumped back up to my feet to chase after them. I'd be in for even more trouble than I'd bargained for if I got separated from them. The dark forest inside the manor's perimeter seemed to go on forever, a labyrinth of trees and boulders. The manor itself loomed in the distance, glowering over the vast grounds, and hidden within was a veritable mountain of treasure, just waiting for us. Lord Lynx was the noble who ruled the remote territory of Rajora. He was also Kid's mortal enemy. We were there that night to steal a certain jewel he kept locked away in his most closely guarded vault, the Frozen Flame. How does someone who's 17 years old have a mortal enemy? Let's put that out there. The Frozen Flame was veiled in mystery. It was said to be imbued with an uncanny energy, and possessed of a beauty and clarity that made it a priceless treasure. Countless thieves had tried to steal it, and not one of them had come close to succeeding. Nor had any of them escaped the manor alive. And now it was our turn to try and sneak into this place of death. Led by a girl who had the ambition to make the impossible possible, a hunger for vengeance that drove her onward, and a desire for riches that could never be satisfied. As we pressed on through the tree-filled darkness, the shadows gave way at last, revealing the true extent of the vast mansion. Finally. Say your prayers, Lynx, as we're coming for you. Keeping to the overgrowth and the shadows of the trees, we made our way around the manor walls in search of a means of entry. Eventually, we came to a terrace overlooking the garden. There was no sign of any guards nearby. The only thing surrounding the manor was an uncanny stillness. This will lead us straight into the west wing, just as well. We don't have any business in the rest of the manor tonight, said Magil, gazing up at the dark building towering over us in the night. Alright then, what are we waiting for? With that, Kid made to vault over the railing of the terrace. Stop! Magil hissed sharply. Remember what we're here for. Our main target is the vault, and the frozen flame within it. We focus on this above all else. Your vengeance is of secondary concern. Agreed. Glancing over her shoulder, Kid replied with a reluctant, Yeah, don't get your knickers in a twist. But if we happen to run into him, I'm gonna knock that Drongo's block off, and neither of you or anyone else is gonna stop me. I guess Kid was going to get her way, whether we liked it or not. Let's go, boys. The night is young. She cleared the railing with a sprightly hop and vanished inside the manor. I glanced toward Magil and nodded in silence. We followed Kid's lead, and were soon inside Lord Lynx's lair. The darkness swallowed us whole. A corridor stretched off to the left and right from the terrace. It seemed equally dark and chilly in both directions. We're going right down the corridor. Obviously. We pressed on through the darkness, down corridors that turned and twisted, snake-like, this way and that. Everything around us was still and silent, and it felt strangely like we were being watched. We continued, creeping cautiously down the corridors. Kid moved proudly and stealthily like a cat stalking its prey. While in the shadows, Magil followed, gliding swiftly and silently like a sinister breeze. We pressed on into the embrace of Weaver of Fate. Short way along the corridor, running from the right-hand side of the terrace, we found an ancient-looking door, again on our right. Kid pressed an ear against it, listening for any signs of life. Dead quiet. Don't reckon there's anybody in there. Well, there's about to be somebody in there. We're opening the door. In we go. Kid stilled her breath and reached for the handle. The door wasn't locked. It swung slowly open. With a loud-ass creak. What's this room supposed to be? This place is a dump. Kid had poked her head in through the door, taking a quick peek to see if there was anyone inside, and was disappointed by what she found. The room was large, and littered with peculiar-looking machinery and knickknacks, all of which were covered in dust, and had seemingly been dumped there haphazardly. Everything looked like it had been there rusting for a very long time. The ends of the room were completely dark, and it was impossible for us to tell just how big it was, or even what the walls and floors looked like. It seemed the manor's inhabitants had turned the old clock tower into a makeshift storage space some time ago. I stepped warily inside. Leave that alone. I looked over towards Magil and saw Kid trying to pull something from the shadows. It was a huge sword that appeared to be very old indeed. You don't need that old bludgeon. It'll only get in the way. And as much of an antique as it is, it won't fetch much on the market in that condition. Yeah, reckon it might, you know. There's plenty of collectors who just love old bits of junk. Well, some old bits of junk. Pouting, Kid left the sword where she stood. At least, she put it back down gently. It was then that we heard a voice from the shadows. What exactly are you doing here, hmm? I just about jumped out of my skin. Who's there? Kid and Magil turned to face the voice, ready for a fight. A wizened old crone emerged from the shadows. She was hunched over and wore a hood draped over her face. I could tell at a glance that she wasn't just old. She was positively ancient. It's just some doddery old bag. What do you think you're doing, sneaking up on us like that? Kid's shoulders relaxed as the tension left her body. Magil, however, continued to give the woman a piercing stare. Oh, what an impish little thing you are. Here to visit a friend, perhaps. Not in the dead of night, I suspect. The crone narrowed her eyes. Let's get a closer look at you. Ah, yes, you must be here to get your revenge on Lynx. How did she... My heart jumped. She seemed to know exactly who we were. We were in trouble. What if she sounded the alarm? We'd have to give up on the treasure and run for our lives. What were we going to do? We're gonna tell her she was right. Because she knows. So what if we are? Kid narrowed her eyes right back at the crone. What's it to you if we're here to get our revenge? An old Lynxy boy? Gonna do something about it. Heh, you never change, do you? The crone chuckled madly, her small frame shaking. Ah, the boldness of youth. Yes, that's the spirit. You what? Kid looked at the crone, completely confused. I was no less mystified. The heck are you on about? Oh, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. Yes, it was around then that an innocent young thief stole into the manor, looking to singe Lord Lynx's whiskers. She couldn't have been much older than 10, now that I think of it. Shocked, I turned my gaze to Kid. A wet glint had appeared in Kid's eyes, but her glare was like ice. It certainly felt as if the temperature of the room had suddenly dropped below freezing. With a chuckle, the crone continued her story, pretending not to have noticed the change in mood. She was an orphan, you know. Came after Lynx to avenge a woman who'd loved her like her own daughter. But all the vengefulness in the world couldn't change the fact that she was only a little girl. She was no match for Lynx's men, sadly, and they quickly captured her. Lynx is the kind of man one would fear to have for an ally, never mind a foe. Had it not been for the timely assistance of a friend of hers, the girl would have certainly been executed. The way the people of the manor told it, the very shadows pitied the girl and rushed in to spirit her away. I wonder how much of the tale could be true. I have nothing but sympathy for those who know failure, of course. You can't win all the time. And sometimes, against all the odds, fate really can be foiled, and the clockwork of history sent into disarray. No, the ones I have no patience for are those who do not recognize their failure, or who fail and choose to give up as a result. The crone looked up from under her hood, stared Kid directly in the face and grinned. Kid's anger faded, giving way to a dumbfounded expression. If you wish to steal the jewel from Lynx, if you truly wish to triumph, you will have to let go of a treasure of your own, Kid. For as long as you cling on to it, the hands of your clocks will never move. They'll stay exactly where they came to rest all those years ago. Who are you? Oh, me? Why, I'm just an old bag, like you said. I do apologize. I must have taken up a lot of your time with all my babbling. I'll leave you in peace. Oh, but before I go, the crone turned to face me. You seem to be injured, young man. If you wish, I can take a look at your wounds. With all the attention suddenly turned towards me, I panicked a little. Yeah. How many band-aids you got, boo? Please do. The crone muttered a few words as her bony fingers drew sigils in the air. A pale, gentle light began to surround my body, filling me with a strange warmth. Strike a light, that's no ordinary spell. Kid was impressed. Felt my wounds healing and heard a nostalgic melody that soothed the wounds in my heart. Before I realized it, the crone was gone. Hey! Hey, lady! It strained her eyes, scanning the darkness. But there was no one to be seen, and her calls went unanswered. Who the bloody heck was that? Kid looked like she'd just woken up on the floor of the Laughing Pig after a few too many. What did she mean about you having to let go of a treasure? Well, we won't find any answers here. Time to move on. Magil brought us back down to Earth, emotionless as always. It almost seemed as if he thought nothing had happened at all. Yeah, I guess you're right. Kid walked quickly to the door, keen to move on. Hold it, you. Just as I was about to follow Kid out of the room, she jabbed me in the side with her elbow. You stingy little bugger, Serge. Why didn't you tell her to share some of that healing magic with the rest of us? Classic Kid. I am the only injured one here. Did you not see how hard I was painting earlier? The door led back into the corridor, which stretched off to the left and right. Rightward lay the depths of the manor, while the way to the left led back to the terrace. Do we turn around? Yeah, let's turn around. Let's turn around, why not? After a short walk down the corridor, the terrace came into the view. Kept following the corridor. Further to the left we go. We took the corridor leading from the left-hand side of the terrace, eventually arriving at an intersection with some stairs. The path to the right led down the stairs. The path to the left was a dark side passage, and the main corridor continued straight onward. We need to go downstairs, guys. That's where Aaron's dad keeps all his secrets. Slowly, we crept down the staircase, descending deeper into blackness as we went. At the bottom, the path split. The way to the left continued on to an atrium that resembled a sort of plaza, while the path to the right was a winding passageway that trailed off into the darkness. We're going to the right towards the atrium. We went down the stairs, then took the passage to our right. Eventually, we came across an ornate door on the right-hand side. Something smelled fresh and pleasant. Flowers? Was it coming from inside? Let's go inside. Let's go inside. I want to smell flowers in here. We found ourselves in a tidy, welcoming room. The knickknacks and curios dotted around the place seemed to be well loved. The stately desk and the cozy-looking bed nearby, meanwhile, suggested the room's occupant was no stranger to luxury. Though the room was richly furnished, somehow it felt awfully lonely. Kid took a quick look around before commenting. It's Lynx's girl's room. A half-written letter on the desk and a teacup, still warm, suggested that the lady of the manor was still nearby. But it didn't seem that anyone was here now. We decided to search the room. Some charming flowers, a discarded cotton handkerchief, a small bottle of perfume. Nothing that meant much to me, nor anything that seemed particularly valuable. The kids seemed to have the same impression, and scanned the room clearly not expecting to find anything. The only item of note was a small antique box, which bore a crest resembling a viper. Where are we gonna look next? Let's look at the little box. I picked up the small wooden box on the bookshelf. It gently opened the lid, and was greeted by a soothing melody. A music box. There was something about that song. I know this tune. Kid was standing next to me, and I could see something had changed in her expression. You do, huh, Kid? Someone used to sing it to me, a long time ago. She turned her gaze downward and went silent. Kid? Startled, she turned to me. Her eyelashes glistened, as if wet with dew. She walked to the door, not saying a word. Hey, Kid, wait up. We left the room. Was she crying? Was Kid crying? Maybe I was just seeing things. The passage outside the room continued to our left and right. The path to the right led deeper into the darkness of the manor. Meanwhile, going left would take us to the atrium and another branch. I thought we went towards the atrium already. Maybe we passed through it. Maybe I misread. It's fine. Took the passage to the right. I have one job, guys. I just have one job and I failed it. We went down the dark passageway, eventually finding ourselves at a sturdy-looking, immaculately polished door. Kid sniffed at the air. Just as I thought. Something stinks in here. I reckon we found the beast's lair, lads. In the darkness, Kid's lips twisted into a grin that turned my blood cold. Should we go in? I don't know what beast she's talking about. Yeah, let's go. Kid opened the door and slipped inside. I don't know if we can, like, die in this game. It was Lynx's room, but he didn't seem to be around. Heh, Buck is gone and scarpered because he heard I was coming. There was something deeply unpleasant about the room. There wasn't anything unusual about the furniture and fittings. Not how they looked or how they were made, but taken as a whole, it all felt discordant. Was this a reflection of Lynx? A seemingly ordinary facade that hid a disturbing truth that only some could see. Let's see what we can find. The desk drawers, the paintings on the wall, the vase on top of the side table. We left no stone unturned. There didn't seem to be anything suspicious. But as I scanned the room, something unusual caught my eye. There was a pedestal in one corner with a significant-looking scarlet cloth drawn over it. I slowly raised my hand toward it. Be careful what you touch in here, warned Magil. I pulled my hand back timidly. But then the cloth flipped back with a flutter without me having laid a finger on it. That thing just moved by itself, exclaimed Kid, her eyes wide open with surprise. Gripped by curiosity, we moved in to see what had been hiding. It was a large, antique mirror of an elaborately decorated style I'd seen before. It wasn't the kind of thing that would normally seem out of place in an old manor like this, and yet... Wait, something ain't right, said Kid. Meanwhile, I was captivated by the gaze of the statue of Venus reflected in the mirror. Suddenly, the eyes of the statue shone with light. What is your desire? It spoke with a voice that was crystal clear, yet smoky and husky. The mirror, it's speaking, I stammered. Ah, a whispering mirror, muttered Magil, as if he'd seen them 1,000 times before. What's one of those? Kid gave Magil a quizzical glance. A magical mirror in which a spirit dwells. The spirit can freely move between its own and other mirrors, and will share its wisdom with those who ask. Perhaps we should ask it something. I decided to ask it about something that had been on my mind for some time. What? We're not gonna ask about the manor? I guess we're gonna ask about Magil. I want to know about Magil's past, I said, casting a furtive glance in his direction. As you wish. The statue of Venus in the mirror turned her gaze downward. As she did so, the darkness spread across the mirror's surface. But nothing else took its place. There was only unending black. What did it mean? Leave the stupid mirror alone and get back to work, snapped Kid. She was already poking and prodding at other things in the room. Stepped away from the mirror and started searching the room again. Took another look around. I didn't rate our chances of finding much of interest, no matter how hard we looked. What was I going to do? So do nothing, or do something. Let's do something. Let's see what I can do myself. You can't just rely on others all the time. Let's see what we can find. There had to be somewhere where Lynx kept things hidden. My eyes scanned the room and eventually settled on a large and comfy-looking sofa under the window. I sat down on it and then on a whim decided to fully recline. Something poked me in the back. There was something hard between the cushions. Pulled out a brown glass bottle filled with some kind of liquid. What's this? Good for what ails ya? Best have a glug then, eh? The label on the back says it's good for malnutrition, weak constitutions, poor appetite, insomnia, joint pain, chills, headaches, and back pain. Sounds like snake oil to me. I took a gulp, not expecting much. But my whole body was filled with a pleasing warmth, and I thought I could feel my circulation improving. Well, guess I feel less tired. Good, because we're leaving. Won't find much else here. With that, we left Lynx's room. This is going to be an excellent place for us to wrap up for the day, guys. I appreciate you joining me for the start of Radical Dreamers. I'm super excited to find out where this goes and how it all ties in together with the Chrono series. I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.